Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped. It is a beautiful sunny day today, and I've driven all the way out to Portland Bill for this one. What a stunning location. My first ever visit. It's particularly stunning in that direction, but sadly, that part of the car park is really busy, so I've had to come over here to find a little bit of peace and quiet to do this video. But one of the challenges, I think, with the take-up of EVs, and maybe a reason why the take-up has been slower than we'd hoped, is that so many EVs that have come to market have either been mid-size or large SUVs. So they tend to be very expensive. They tend to be the kind of car that requires lots of range, so people instantly go on the range anxiety or there's not enough range bandwagon. For me, where EVs make perfect sense is small city cars, lightweight, agile things that don't need to have massive amounts of range. A bit like the car behind me, really, because that is a Hyundai INSTER. So it's safe to say, over the last few years, we've seen a decline in the sales of A-segment cars, the smallest cars on the market, maybe moving into B-segment, the next size up. But that's not necessarily because we don't want to buy those types of cars. The main reason is so many of our favourite A-segment cars aren't made anymore. They've been killed off. Think of the VW Up, the Ford Fiesta, the Nissan Micra, the Citroen C1, the Toyota Aygo. I could go on. The list is a significantly long one. And that means that our choices for these smaller, cheaper cars are reduced. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're moving to an all-electric future thanks to the ZEV mandate, and those combustion cars have been killed off and not replaced. A lot of the manufacturers focusing on the mid to large size cars to electrify first. But thankfully, over the last year or so, we've started to see manufacturers bringing smaller EVs to market. I guess the halo of those over the last 18 months has been Renault with their R5. But there are some really interesting cars coming to market, and I think this is a really interesting car because Hyundai, their electric game is on point. The Ioniq 5N for me is one of the class-leading best EVs you can buy. I've recently driven the Ioniq 9. Their Kona is a brilliant car. They just make really good electric cars. So finally, they've bought us this, the INSTER. Now, I was actually in Seoul in South Korea earlier this year for the release of a concept car based on the INSTER, the Instaroid. Now, unfortunately, they're not going to make that car, but if you want to see more about it, I'll put a link above and a link in the description below. It's a completely bonkers design concept. But when I was there to see Instaroid, they had some road legal proper Insters. I just thought they were cool and funky, and I've been looking forward to driving the car ever since. Now, you could never accuse the Hyundai design department of being conservative. I think their designs are pretty edgy. Some of them I really like Ioniq 5. Some of them I struggle with, like Ioniq 6. But when you look across the family range, you've got to commend them for pushing the boat out, for pushing our kind of acceptance of what's cool just out a little bit more. The first time you see it, you might not like it, but then it starts to grow on you. But the INSTER for me, it didn't take any growing. I liked it straight away. It just has a real quirk to it. I love these lights here. This is part of the pixel face design language. You see it on the rear of the car, and on the front you see it on Ioniq 5 as well. But we've got quite a few of the cars here on these press drives today, and when you've got one following you behind you, the most noticeable part of the front end are these two big daytime running lights that run either side, and you've got that similar kind of shaped light reflected on the rear of the car as well. It's quite a slabby front, and I just think it just has a real character and purpose to it. Now then, let's have a little chat about size. This car is just over 1.6 meters wide, which makes it really easy to place on narrow roads, and just over 3.8 meters long. But with those dimensions, that makes it typically a little bit bigger than a car that you would put in an A segment category, but not quite big enough to be in the B segment category. It kind of sits in between. It's almost in a category of its own. But the real trick it plays, which is a really clever one, is the external dimensions do not marry up with the space that you get on the inside. It's way bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, and I shall demonstrate that shortly. In terms of trim spec, we've got 3 different trim levels. We've got 1, 2 and Cross. This is the middle spec car, the 2. I'll talk about pricing again in a little while. The Cross is a bit more crossover, but you'd argue that this actually, with the black wheel trims and these chunky roof rails, looks pretty urban crossover anyway. I really like the styling. For me personally, on a car like this, I probably wouldn't go for the frozen paint for 2 reasons. Number 1, they are particularly difficult to keep clean, but number 2, I need to stick my DJI cameras on there, and suction cups don't stick on frozen paint very well, so I'll have to be using the glass. Then the final thing, I love the wheel design. From a distance, all you see is the diamond cut surface, those kind of crucifix type shapes. But then you've got these black elements in there that give it a much more aero finish, so they'll be fantastic for efficiency. But side profile, I like it very much. The view from the back, well, for me, it's very much a case of, honey, I shrunk the Ioniq 5. I look at that and I see so much Ioniq 5. You've got that pixel design that I mentioned when I was at the front, and also you can see there the round lights, that round light cluster giving it such a distinctive look, both front and rear. In terms of luggage space, when you open the boot doesn't look that huge. There's actually about 350 litres of luggage space with the seats up, and 1,059 litres with the seats folded down. But there's lots of clever things going on here in terms of storage solutions. First up, the parcel shelf itself has this kind of canvas shelf just here. It's perfect for laying stuff on there that you don't want to move around. I don't know, bottles of wine, maybe coats, that kind of thing. And then there's also a false floor with more underfloor storage. That's where you can store your charge cables and so on. So seats up, very practical. Seats down, a good amount of space. But the final party piece this car has is those front seats fold flat as well. It's a bit more tricky doing it on the driver's side because you have to put the headrest down and pull the seat back and move the steering wheel up to get it underneath the steering wheel. But on the passenger side, it's super easy. And then you can get a load of up to 2.2 meters long in the passenger side. So you could, I don't know, be buying stuff at IKEA or put in a surfboard or a paddleboard in there to go to the beach, which we might be doing when we get back to the hotel this evening. Or I guess you could put a roof rack on and put it on the roof. But very practical storage solution for such a small car. Now, whenever I review a car, I always try and demonstrate how much space there is for the rear seat passengers. I'm going to do something slightly different in this car. First up, it's an A-segment car, so I'm not expecting miracles in the back at all. I am a really tall driver. I have a 35-inch inside leg. I'm 6'3", but all my height is in my legs. So in terms of seat movement and seat adjustment, first thing I really like, by the way, is notice that the central part here where the bottle holders are moves up and down with your seat. It's not quite a bench seat, but there is no gap in between, if you like. So for me to get into a really comfortable position in this car, I have to be all the way back. But what I want to do is demonstrate to you what that looks like when you're a rear seat passenger. So are we ready? I'm going to put the seat all the way back and then go and jump in the back of the car. It's unbelievable. It's truly unbelievable. I was out testing the new R4 from Renault last week, and that's meant to be bigger and more spacious than the R5. This has more legroom in the back than the R4. Now, arguably, the boot is a little bit smaller, but that amount of legroom is absolutely spectacularly good. I don't know if you're a Doctor Who fan, but the TARDIS, we all know what that stands for, right? Time and relative dimensions in space. You'll thank me for that at the next pub quiz. But this is a TARDIS. I don't understand how it's possible. Then once you are in the back, there's lovely little things like this you will probably have noticed in shot. So Renault have their baguette holder. Well, Hyundai have, it's more like a kind of gun rack, but it's actually an umbrella holder. I absolutely love that. And it comes in that really cool canvas holder as well. But yeah, ridiculous amount of space, absolutely ridiculous. Still taken aback by how much space there is in this car. Now we're sat up front, let's talk a little bit about what's in front of me. First up, materials choice. There are some cheaper feeling materials in here. Top of the doors are plastics, you've got a plastic dash, you've got cloth seats. However, easy to clean, and also the price point of this vehicle, you kind of need to have some compromises somewhere, but it doesn't feel cheap in here. It's just not covered in Napa leather and luxury. There are some really nice touches. I like this little thing here. It's a bit quirky. I guess it's a great place to put things like parking tickets and stuff, but you've got a few different things that you can screw on here for different purposes. There's shopping bag hooks, so as well as your umbrella holster, there's lots of other cool things going on in the car. The main central console, you've got the big screen sticking up out the dash, which I'm sure some of you are going to absolutely hate. But this bit has plenty of real buttons on it, and it has a really nice feel. You've got a little charge mat for your phone sneakily put in there, which is really nice. I like this center part. Now, because it's a bench seat and there's nothing in the middle here, flat floor architecture, and the gear selector is actually on the steering column, you can actually slide from one seat to another. So if someone parked too close to you, you could get out the passenger side if you wanted to. Let's have a chat about trim levels. I mentioned there's 1, 2 and cross. So the entry level, starts at £23,500. And whenever I've done EV reviews in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, most people bemoan how expensive cars are and we need to have cheaper cars. But interestingly, the entry-level car is only about 5% of orders so far for the INSTER. It actually comes with 2 different battery sizes. So you can have a 42 kilowatt-hour battery or a 49 kilowatt-hour battery. And the smaller battery comes with a less powerful motor at 97 PS, whereas the larger battery comes at 115 PS. The 2 and the Cross only have the larger battery and the more powerful motor. So this is a 2. Now, I want to talk a little bit about range, because the WLTP range, if you take the 1, by the way, you can have a 15-inch wheel option, which gives you a little bit better range, or you can upgrade to the 17-inch wheels. The 2 and the Cross just come with 17s. So the WLTP range for the car I'm sat in is 223 miles. And normally what I'd say is, you'll be lucky to do 200 miles. But I have to say, this is the most efficient car, electric car, I have so far reviewed on the channel. I've driven over here and done a real mix of driving, city driving, villages, National 60, National 70, bit of spirited driving on an A road. And on a 2-hour drive over here, I averaged 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour. Now, to put that into context, all you need to do is multiply 4.5 by 49 kilowatt hours, and that gives you 220 miles. And that's the efficiency that I've seen and experienced today translated into actual range. And for this type of car, I think over 200 miles is an absolute winner, basically. For sure, in the winter time, that might be affected by colder temperatures, but the INSTER comes with, as standard, a heat pump and battery heating and battery cooling. So it will keep the battery in that sweet spot of operational temperature range. If you use the native navigation in the car to navigate to your charge points, your charge stops, the car will also precondition the battery just before you get to the charge point to make sure that the battery is in the ultimate condition to get the fastest and most rapid charging. The car will support 100 kilowatt charging DC. I'd like it to be a little bit more than that, but I did ask the question this morning in the briefing, and it's a simple question of money, basically. If it was higher than 100 kilowatts, that means there's different amounts of cooling and battery management systems and so on. And for a car of this size and this price point, it just isn't a cost-effective thing to do. So that's why it's just 100 kilowatts. And it's fairly standard across A segment and B segment cars, to be fair. But that is very, very impressive. So external looks, big tick. Internal space, unbelievably big tick. And efficiency and range, actually, for this segment of car, brilliant. So the final thing we need to do is find out how it drives. So I reckon we stick some cameras up and drive back to Bournemouth along some lovely roads, and I'll talk to you about how the INSTER drives, because it's a hoot. Let's leave Portland Bill and head back to Bournemouth, and apparently we've got some really nice roads on the way. Just while we're talking about interior, by the way, the other choice of interior on some of the cars on today's press trip, they have almost like a Porsche houndstooth seat covering. It is mega, really nice. Don't get me wrong, this is all right. It's just a little bit dark in here, but the houndstooth with the lighter coloured plastics just looks really, really cool. But I guess first thing to say about this car is, on the way over, as I said, I think I've done just shy of 60 miles. And that was a whole mix of things. And I was just in the normal drive mode. I wasn't trying to hypermile or anything. I just was genuinely interested in the normal driving conditions, what I was going to get. And 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour is mega, like really, really good. So that's impressed me a great deal. What I'd like to do on the way home, because I think the roads are going to be quite beautiful, but look at that view, my days. What a beautiful day, we've been blessed with the weather. So on the way home, try and find some nice A or B roads and just step up through the different driving modes of this car, up into sport mode, just to see if it's got a bit of whiz, because you know, it's going up. Although Renault 5's technically a B segment car, it's in the next category up. For me, I'm placing this car against Renault 5, because for me, Renault 5 has just tapped into a real need and desire for a small EV that has quirky looks, is fun to drive, and is reasonably priced. And this INSTER ticks all of those boxes. So hopefully, it'll be able to deliver on the driving box as well. I'm actually going to start the driving part in, if you like, more relaxed driving, because this car is so good at it. It's very smooth. The ride is very competent indeed. It's got a firmness to it, but it's not too firm so it becomes crashy. The steering is quite light and almost over assisted to start with, but then it does firm up. But when you're in this kind of traffic, one of the things I've been doing is playing with the regenerative braking levels a little bit more than I would normally do. You've got paddles on the back of the steering wheel, like most electric cars have, and I've got 4 different levels of regenerative braking. And when I'm on a kind of B road, A road scenario like this, I'm in the middle 2. At the moment, I'm in level 3 out of 4. If I just knock it back to the middle one, and then you kind of, when you lift off, there's only a little bit of regenerative braking. What I've been doing is almost the faster paced driving I do, the more I knock the regen braking off. So on a dual carriageway or motorway, I've got it set to the minimum level so that you get more coasting, and you're not kind of that regen braking isn't cutting into your momentum. And then as you get into a more urban environment where you've got more start-stop traffic, I kind of ramp up the levels of regen braking. And coming into a roundabout like this one, I've actually almost been using the regen braking paddle a little bit like going down through the gearbox and just getting more and more retardation without actually touching the brake. And then if you go into the very top level, that little ping was to notify me that I've just gone into I pedal, which is Hyundai's one pedal driving. And that will bring you to a complete stop. It is a pretty aggressive one pedal driving mode, to be fair, and actually in town it is good enough so that you don't really need to use your foot brake. And then once I've come onto the dual carriage like this, I'll then knock that regen braking all the way down to its middle level, so when I lift off like that, I don't get any retardation in the car at all. And then as you come up to motorway speeds, the car feels nice and relaxed and composed on the road. And even though it's a small car, it has a fairly mature ride. It rides like a bigger car, which I really like. I think sometimes when you get A-segment cars and they're really tiny, sometimes when you get on the faster roads with the big traffic, it gets a bit worrying. But I don't feel that in this car at all. Now this bit of road looks a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to go into sport mode. And straight away, I've got more throttle response. Now, the nice thing about the car being a smaller footprint is that when you're on a narrower road like this, it's a little bit easier to place the car. You're less worried about something coming the other way and there not being room for two cars. And you can just enjoy the car a little bit more. And I think actually, this kind of road where you're not going to push on massively quickly because there's high hedges and you haven't got good sight lines and all that kind of stuff. But what you find is you can drive at a reasonable pace and just have lots of fun, basically. And when you do squeeze on the throttle, there's a really nice amount of pull and acceleration. Now, the car is under 1,400 kilos. And with 115 horsepower, seems to go all right. Oh, I'm starting to really like this car. And I think it just brings a new dynamic to electric motoring. If you live in a city and you're doing relatively low miles, and by low miles, I mean the average UK car journey is less than 20 miles. So if you're doing under, let's say 50 to 100 miles a day on a commute, and you've got somewhere to charge your car, and you're not running an EV, you're mad. You're absolutely mad. Now I'm that's foot flat to the floor. It's not got the amount of pull away of some of its sort of, proper performance EVs, but there's plenty of go there. It's got a tiny little bit of slip from the front, bit of understeer there. Just start to feel the front end of the car complaining a little bit as you start to put power on when you've got lots of lock. But what a beautiful part of the world this is. It's so lovely. Beautiful little villages, thatched cottages, sea views. Look at this. Wowzers. Oh, that one's for sale. Best make sure Tracy doesn't spot that. Absolutely beautiful part of the world. Here we go. This road's a little bit wider. Room for two cars. You can see in the distance. Some nice undulations. You can feel the kind of suspension compression and then just lifting. And actually, when you get it on a road like this, although it doesn't have huge amounts of acceleration, if you keep the momentum going, it's got really nice road manners. It covers the road really well. It deals with the imperfections in this road really nicely, and it just has a really mature drive. And actually, you can make progress in this car. You really can. So yeah, safe to say, you stick it in sport mode and you're going to have some fun. I'm struggling to think of things that I don't like about this car. The looks, okay, I can imagine the looks are probably a little bit, you either love it or hate it. But I could say that about most cars. I'll look at some cars and think, that is the most beautiful car ever made, and somebody will say, that's horrible. Well, that's all right, because we've each got our own tastes. Down by the seaside. Now, the really cool thing is, to get back to Bournemouth, where we started our journey today, we have to go over the chain ferry. And I haven't done that ever, so I'm quite looking forward to that. So I think that's a perfect place for me to give you my final impressions of this car. didn't realise that the chain ferry would be quite so noisy, but final impressions of the Hyundai INSTER. I absolutely love this car. I love the way it looks, I love the amount of space inside, and I love the way it drives. It is so efficient. I'm doing it really hard on the way back as far as we've come here. Done the best part of 100 miles, and it's still on 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour. It's unbelievable. Most cars, when you drive them like that, they'll be struggling to do 3. So I think 220 miles is absolutely achievable in this car, and I love it. However, good as it is, can you imagine what would happen if they gave that car to the N division? Can you imagine an INSTER N? I know I started off this video talking about Instaroid, the design concept. I honestly don't think that will ever be made like that, but a hot version of this car. Look what they did to the i20N, the i30N, the Ioniq 5N, the Ioniq 6N, which is on its way. The INSTER N is a natural progression from that. But honestly, brilliant car. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that. Put in the comments what you think of the INSTER. But if you did enjoy it, give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol Ped for plenty more content to come. And I'm nearly there. It's a very short chain ride, you know.